Hey team, voice of Mr. Lackey here. And I'm going to give you guys just a quick rundown on the front of the handout that says Periodic Table Basics. There's just a few short notes to go through. And if you finished that color periodic table that we did in class together the other day, you might want to have that handy. It's going to help for you to refer to it as we go through these, and then you'll need it to answer the questions on the back of this handout. If you didn't get those directions, those should be outside the classroom in the slot for Tuesday. All right, so if you're ready to go, we're going to move on here though. So looking at the top of those notes, just some terms that were also in the coloring directions, but just to review them here. So groups or families are the vertical columns on the periodic table. So for example, on the far left side here in purple, there's one family and then a second family. There are some shorter families here in orange. So each one of those families is only about 4 elements tall. And then we see some of these other taller families on the right-hand side. The ones that are highlighted in purple here, those are called the A families. So we tend to focus on those elements throughout this year. These shorter elements, the B families, those are the transition metals as you labeled on your key. We won't spend as much time with them this year. A lot of our year is going to focus on these elements that are highlighted in purple. I do want to point something out. If you look at the numbering, it does something kind of tricky. So all the way on the left, I have 1A and then 2A, and then 3A appears all the way after the jump. So that's 3A, 4A, 5A, all the way over the last A family over here is 8A. All right. You'll notice it also has the name, for example, if I go to 3A over here, that's also sometimes known as 13 because it depends on how you count. If you're counting these orange ones, it's the 13th. But if you're only looking at the A columns, it's only the third A column. All right, so then looking left to right across the table, those horizontal rows are called periods on the periodic table. You'll notice that some of them, for example, the one I've highlighted here on the bottom in purple, some of them stretch all the way across the table. Some of them jump across gaps though. So this one that I have here in kind of pink on the top, there's 2 elements on the left side and then a ton of blank spaces and then a bunch more elements on the right side. Even with that gap, they're all considered being in the same period. Those are numbered down the side of your table. Your handout doesn't have that, but you might want to write those numbers in. So like up here on the top, just these 2 elements are part of period 1. And then below it, the one I have highlighted in pink, that's period 2. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then actually slightly confusingly, these ones at the bottom are also in period 6 and period 7. We'll get to those later. If you don't want to label the period on those, you don't really quite need to for today. A couple other things then. So of course, they're broken down into columns and they're also broken down into rows. So there's groups or families and periods, but then also they are further broken down into more categories. Those categories are based on their chemical and physical properties. So basically how those elements behave. And those categories that we're talking about are the things you labeled the other day. So you'll notice that there are things like the alkali metals, the transition metals, the halogens. Those are categories. Now, sometimes those categories also fall all in the same space. So like the noble gases, if you look at your key, the noble gases are also, in addition to being a color category, they are a family. However, some of these stretch across multiple spots. So if you look at the transition metals in the middle of your table, the transitions take up many periods as well as many families all at the same time. So they're not just contained to one family or one period in the same way that the halogens are all contained to family 8A. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to tie something back into the last unit that we did. So when we did those Bohr models, I sent you guys home with this assignment, and several of you turned these in. So some of these pictures are from your handouts. So we're looking for a family theme. So these 3 elements on your screen, if you look on your periodic table in family 2A, you're going to notice that you can find beryllium as well as magnesium as well as calcium all in family 2A. If you notice also, they all have something in common. So if you take a close look at your Bohr models, you might have noticed something that they all have in common. If you can't find what they have in common, maybe take a closer look down here at their Lewis dot structures. So down here, here, and here. Okay, so maybe you're picking up on what the theme is. Let's go ahead and take a quick look. Let's confirm that theme and see if it holds in other families. So if I go to, for example, something from family 3A, here's aluminum. It's from 3A. Check out its Lewis dot structure. All right, if we pick an element from 4A, you might be able to predict what we're going to see here. So an element from 4A, such as Sn, which is tin, there's its Lewis dot structure.